Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to do a mini tier list for both the characters and also the skill pages in Black Clover Mobile. Now, this is a mini tier list because it doesn't include everyone. It only includes the characters that we have gotten at the launch of the game, and that is because I am aiming this video towards the 999 summon banner during Christmas period. Now, I don't have the exact details of what's going to be included, but if it's anything like in JP, etc., it only included the ones that were available at the launch of the game, which is kind of the those 11 characters and also a bunch of the skill page, their respective skill pages, as well as some of the generic ones, and that's kind of why I'm doing this ranking based on them. Now, because you get 999 summons, and they're only 11 characters. What that basically means is on average for every single character, you should probably, have a chance to get him 90 times. Obviously, you can only save one summon as your kind of your backup choice if you don't have something, else that coming out of the banner. But anyway, with 90 chances at the character that you want, a lot of time you kind of then rely on what else you have in the same role. And if you can only get one character as your kind of guaranteed SSR, but potentially multiple skill pages, SSR skill pages, then a lot of the tiebreaker really comes down to, which skill page is better than the other. And that's kind of why I decided it makes sense for me to cover both the characters and also the skill pages. So the way I kind of advise you guys to reroll is obviously aim for the character that you really want. But once you do have multiple shots, well, at least you have, the one you save as well as a new role. Compare the rest of the 9 character with skill pages. Use this tier list as a reference to see kind of their respective ranking and then kind of make up your decision on which one do you want to save. There are certain tiebreaker on SR that will briefly cover as well. Not on the skill pages side because I do feel like skill pages they're a lot more universal, so you don't really have to dip into the SR side of skill pages. But yeah, just use this for reference. Obviously, everyone's situation is different depending on who else you have gotten in your box and what are you aiming for, whether you're trying to do PvP or PvE, etc. So when I do go through this tier list, I'll be talking about kind of what are the advantage or disadvantage of every single one of character, just so that you have all of those information to make up your own mind. So this is just my take on what I would personally be going after, as well as the reasoning behind my tier list. But obviously, everyone's opinion are different. So take my guide more as a reference rather than saying you should be doing this. Okay, so starting off at with all of the characters because that's really the main thing you're going after. Now I have a few tiers, 3 tiers for SSR, 2 tiers for SR. Let's start off with the top, which is the first choice. These 4 characters are definitely by far much better than any other SSR uh, that you are able to obtain in the same manner, in my opinion. Lotus is hands down the best choice in both PvP and PvE here, mainly for his ability to slow down the enemy, which can't be replicated by anyone else. Like in the recent raid guide I have made, lots of people actually ask me if I don't have Lotus, what should I be doing? And honestly, there's just no replacement, so it's quite tough to be honest. So you really do want to get this character. Hopefully, most of you have already summoned for him in your initial 20 rolls, but if you do not, then definitely go for Lotus. His ability to slow down can completely overturn a defeat in PvP into a win, like completely. If you're able to slow down all of the enemy, you essentially get 4 free turns before they're able to move. That can change loads of things. So absolutely amazing in PvP. In PvE, once again, slowing down the enemy means you have more time to kill of one enemy rather than so they only attack you with 2 enemies rather than 2 attacks rather than 3 attacks, etc., which can greatly help your survivability. It also gives you some breathing room for your healers to heal twice rather than just heal once. So absolutely fantastic in PvE and also in boss battles. He's not only able to slow with his skill 3, but his skill 2 also extend the slow duration by an extra turn. And with a 2 turn cooldown, you can actually go into like an infinite loop of keep on slowing down the enemy. So absolutely great character in all game modes. So definitely first choice if you don't already have him. Then we move on to Radis, Mars, and William. All three characters are very, very good, almost equal in their opinion. Personally, I'm putting Raditz ahead of William, who is the head of Mars, but that's mainly based on my own forecast and prediction of how the meta will be rather than anything else, and also PvP meta. Oh, also somewhat relevant to PvE as well. But yeah, let me just kind of talk through my reasoning. But in all honesty, all three are great characters, so you can't go wrong by choosing any one of them. Raditz is going to be very much meta relevant in PvP because of the release of Noel, who put on barriers but also benefit from barriers, etc. Raditz, so that's Raditz skill 3. His skill 1 has the ability to poison, which is damage all time, so not too much to talk about that. Skill 2 is actually really, really good if you do have his skill page, so I will talk about that when I move on to his skill page. But also on top of that, his combo skill can also taunt enemy, which have a nice cheese way if you combine it with William, that's more like due to Winham more than due to Raditz. So once again, I'll talk about that when I actually talk about Winham as a character. But just be known that Raditz skill 3 is good. Skill 2 can be good if you have skill page. Combo attack can be good if you have Winham as well. The character himself is also green, as you can see, the only green character out of my first choice. And right now in the game, there's already abundance of blue characters. Whereas a lack of green characters. So from color advantage point of view, Raditz is also very much needed. So that's kind of why overall I just feel Raditz is probably the best choice out of the three, based on my read of the PvP meta going forward. William is a character who is very, very flexible, and I almost want to say he's jack of all trades because all of his skills are good, but all for different purposes, and that makes him a very much fungible character that you can bring into whatever team depending on the situation and use one part of his skill or toolkit for that particular purpose. It does kind of make him a bit of like jack of all trades, master of none because he just do too many different things in one single kit. But at the same time, as one character who I think there's always value and wouldn't get power crap. I mean, one thing that I know for sure that he wouldn't get power crap is that he is the fastest character in the game. Like, I know there are other characters in the future who are also fast, but I think that's still only gonna be the same as William's speed. Like, it's just gonna be a tie, but there's no one who's actually able to outspeed William. So that by itself is already useful, because that means he always attack first. And the reason why that's useful is that, like I said, if you use his combo attack, what that really allows you to do is that you're able to unleash one other slow character's combo attack at the very start of the turn. So, for example, if you combo up with Raditz, then you have the ability to taunt one person. If you combo up with Mars, then you have the ability to do an AoE stun. So that is by itself is already one great utility that wouldn't get power creep. So that's already a very good investment from that perspective. His skill 3 also do fortify and counter attack, which once again is a very, very nice move. The fortify itself help you to prevent against a lot of those one shot kill teams. So, for example, Ryan Lick combo, even though they're green, if you do actually use William to do fortify on your team, that is one of the few ways where you can actually counter against Ryan Lick combo right now in the game. Obviously, once Noelle is released, then she can also do it by herself. But just knowing that the fact that you are able to unleash fortify guaranteed to unleash because you're the fastest character in the game at the very beginning. That by itself is great. Like I said, there are other characters in the game in the future who will also have tight speed. But knowing that William is one character that you are able to get at launch, and therefore you have all his dupe box options in all of the world affinity, friendship, bonds, etc. That basically means you can guarantee over time, you can guarantee to get William to enhance 5, and at enhance 5, he would definitely have the higher speed, and that is much more likely for you to get William to enhance 5 because of all those free dupes, as opposed to a new future character who you will actually need to get lucky, will actually spend lots of money and resources just to be able to summon enough copies to enhance 5. So that's kind of why William is really useful there. His skill 2 is also really good. increased attack and also speed of one other character. Um, Depending on who you are going after. But if you pair it up with someone like S1 Asta, who is able to do an ultimate and then follow up with another S2, that can literally one and kill anyone. Like I'm not even joking. Like Asta is red unit, but if you aim that at any kind of blue debuffer, blue attacker, even with a color disadvantage, Asta can one tap them. And for that reason, in PvP, if you're attacking using William and one other single target attacker to nuke an enemy, that is also a very, very viable play. So there's William have utility from that front as well. Then William's skill one have the ability to transform someone, which I know it's RNG and quite low chance, but once again, if you are aiming at the one enemy who is the most scary, and the one who has a potential to overturn the battle, for example, let's say Lotus, etc., even though it's RNG chance, if you manage to get it, then you completely change the flow of the battle. And it also quite important in PvE, especially in a lot of Hall of Illusions later on, having that constant ability to potentially stun, well, not stun, sorry, transform an enemy into the tree can buy you so much time in hard contents and can really carry you in a lot of the really difficult battles where the enemy is not immune to status change, etc. So overall, like within like his whole skill kit, all of his attack is really really strong. They all serve slightly different purpose, but because all of them are very strong, it's one character who I think is really good investment because I just don't think there would be any reason where you can't find a situation where he would be completely useless. So that's kind of why I really think highly of William. But he is a blue character and there's an abundance of blue character. That's kind of why I do feel like value wise in the moment, probably not as good as Raditz, but from long term investment, I definitely don't think you'll be disappointed by having a fully deep winning, etc. Mars is another great character. Combo attack with Lotus is absolutely deadly because that's the only one who can guarantee slowdown. Before, if you have Lotus by himself, I already mentioned slow is absolutely strong debuff, but that was an RNG chance. With Mars, the combo attack now all of a sudden becomes guaranteed slow on all of the enemies. So that by itself is absolutely crazy. If you don't use combo attack with Lotus, just use a normal combo attack, then you have AoE stun chance, and that is also good because you can pair up with William to go for one turn, the first turn stun. Or if you don't, because the enemy may put skill pages to prevent stun on the first turn, which is a viable strategy. Then because Mars is actually so slow, by the time Mars attack normally, the first 10 for all of the enemies will be gone, and therefore you have that chance to stun them again. So you can actually almost do a bit of a mind trick by, pairing up William with Mars. People are going to think you are going for the first 10 stun, and therefore put all their skill pages to prevent first 10 stun. But actually, no, you don't do that. You actually just use the actual combo attack when it's Mars turn, and because he's so slow, you're actually then able to have that potential to stun everyone. So you can play a bit of mind trick on the stunning front as well with his combo attack. His other main selling point is of course, the one that prevents debuff for your first turn. Once again, depends on the rest of the team whether you go for slow team or go for fast team. If you go for fast team, that debuff immunity is kind of wasted because yeah, because you'll be acting first and that debuff immunity will be gone. Just as simple as that. But if you're going for a slow team, then that first turn debuff immunity can work wonders. For example, it can prevent you being slowed down by Lotus. Obviously, they can just use their special on turn two instead, but at least that you buy yourself one extra turn. So yeah, overall, just a very very good character. In PvE. He is the best blue tank. In fact, he is the best tank in the game, in my opinion. But one thing I do feel is quite bad for him is that in PvE content, for example, if you do want to clear the red gear dungeon, you don't need Mars. Like Soul is a good replacement. Seke, I've seen people do clear the dungeons with Seke instead. That's an R unit. I personally have done it without Mars and just used William to tank. So I don't feel Mars is needed in PvE content, and in PvP, there's already too many blue units, and with the release of Noel and also Junius as well. I do find he doesn't Mars doesn't offer anything special anymore. He is very good, very bulky, always the last one to be killed off in PvP, but he doesn't do enough to protect the rest of the team. That's kind of the main thing that I find to be really bad about him. If you do actually have Lotus, then fine, he actually have that potential chance to taunt. But if you don't have that combo with Lotus, then he just make himself like fortify himself, make his defense goes higher, etc. He do so well to protect himself, but doesn't protect the rest of the team. That's kind of why I don't find him as valuable in PvP going forward. But still, it's nonetheless a very good choice. And like I said, you can't really go wrong with any one of those three, which is kind of why I put them all here in the same tier as Lotus. Which one you choose, that's completely up to your own situation and what you're aiming for. Next here, I'll have two characters who are both green, and this is what I would like to say green coverage, mainly because at launch there wasn't too many characters who are green. You have Radis, but that's a tank, and then you also have Mimosa, who's a seasonal one character, but that's a healer. So if you actually want to go for offensive ability, that to be honest, green is the one color that's really lacking. Um, I know they have released Royal and Lake Banner, and you have two really OP green DPS there. But the reality is, I know a lot of people actually skip them in order to save out for Junius and also Noel. So if you have done that, then you may be similar to me in a place where I hardly have any green character at all, and therefore it may actually be worthwhile to consider whether you want to pick up someone for your green coverage as well. Now, out of the two, Real to me is a much better character because he has the ability to stun, remove buff, incapacitate, and therefore increase the enemy damage taken, etc. So he's another kind of jack of all trade to me and very useful debuffer who I think there's always going to be value in him in most situations. But he's not a proper DPS. So if you do actually want a proper DPS, then the only other green DPS in the game that you can get from this banner is going to be Forgonia. So if you do are going for green coverage, then have a think and balance in your head whether you want a proper DPS or just want a kind of like a jack of all trade utility character who can do buff, debuff, a bit of damage, a bit of like gimmick with stun as well. So just have a think. The both are viable. Personally, like I said, I'll probably still go for real, even though he's not proper DPS. But the fact that you're able to remove buff and also do debuff can at least allow the rest of your team to do a bit more damage, and maybe you're able to get away without any DPS. But yeah, if you do prefer traditional DPS, then Frugonia is a very very solid choice as well. Then we have five characters who I think are just situational. Most cases, I don't think you would be going after them because it's unless you are waiting out. Otherwise, I don't think you'll be running out of choices from the first six. But if you are in that situation, then these are the last five that I'll consider. Sally is a very good character who's able to buff up all attack, whether it's magic attack or normal attack, etc. But with the release of Seasonal 2 Ghost, she is now replaceable. So therefore, whether there's that incremental value to getting Sally outside of Seasonal 2 Ghost as well, that's kind of up to you. And I know there's a very high chance people will be getting Seasonal 2 Ghost because you will be summoning for either S2 Noel or S2 Charmy because they're both really good characters, and with the luck goes, most of the time you're quite likely to get a third seasonal character, which is seasonal Ghost as well. So I do feel because of the release of Ghost, the value of Sally is gonna go down slightly. Uh, Nozel is a bit of a tricky one. He by himself, I don't think he's very good. But his combo with Fagonia is just absolutely crazy. And also just yeah, I mean, if you guys seen my JP video when I first started creating content, I managed to climb, top rank PvP Upper League 1 purely with my Fagonia and Nozel combo. It was absolutely deadly. And I know they buffed that combo as well. So purely from my personal experience, I know how much craziness Nozel can do with Fagonia. Nozel by himself is probably not a character I would consider playing in most modes, but with Fagonia, that definitely open up a new door of possibility. But whether you do that or not, it kind of depending on whether you already have Fagona in your box. So once again, take that as your own choice. Personally, it's probably just better to go for one of the other characters. But if you are a great fan of Fagona and Nozel like I am, then definitely take it for a test drive. He won't disappoint you with that combo. Then we have Jack. Jack is a great boss killer. Um, he also have the ability to kill Noel as well. One of the few characters who have the ability to kind of like one shot Noel and just completely destroy Noel, even if Noel's like enhanced 5 with max scare, etc. The thing that makes it complicated for Jack is that Judas is also coming. And I know people will be summoning for Juniors. And if you're going for a single target nuke, Juniors do just as well, if not better, than Jack. And if you're talking about utility wise, Julius also offer a lot more utility to the team than Jack, so I can't really see people picking Jack if you do have the summons to go for Julius. So that's kind of why Jack is also quite low on my list. Then you have Leopold. Leopold can do a bit burn gimmick with Fagona if you play it that way. You can also go for kind of like a solo DPS because he does have the ability to live train, etc. But he's a red DPS, and with S2 Noel also being red DPS, I do wonder in what situation would you need the second red DPS. So that's kind of why I also feel like Leopold is a bit unlucky in the sense that he just got power crap already. Yeah, just as simple as that. Then you have Charlotte, very good character, but everyone should have already gotten one for free doing story. So if you are going for Charlotte, that's literally just a dupe. And in my opinion, dupe is definitely the worst situation. You definitely want to go for a new character because that can offer you a new different type of gameplay, which may or may not come handy in the future with raids where you need to bring like multiple teams, etc. Whereas a dupe that hardly mean anything to be honest. So that's kind of why Charlotte's definitely the bottom of the tier here. Then we have a few SR characters. They're all good. Valtos and Finro, if you have extra dupe, you can increase their speed, which is absolutely crucial, which is why I do feel they are tiebreakers, potentially if everything else are equal. However, in my opinion, SSR is always better than SR. Even if you are unlucky but and got an SSR, which is at the bottom of the skill page, to me, that's probably still going to be better than an extra Finro or Valtos dupe because naturally over time you will be able to maxing out them anyway with either universal dupes or from just purely summoning them over time. So that's kind of why even though they are very good character, they are only tiebreaker considering you have the same kind of skill page tier at the same time. Then you have other SR characters who are good, but at this point in the game, I don't think you need them anymore. I'll briefly talk about them. Teresa and Mimosa, they are red healers. You wouldn't be getting an SSR red healer till I think like Witch Queen, which is like season 5, 6, I don't know. So you wouldn't be getting red healer for a very long time. So as a result, if you do for whatever reason need a red healer, even though season 2 Noel can put a barrier and can work just as well as protecting your team, but if you do need a dedicated healer, then yeah, fine. Teresa and Mimosa, they're good options. You have Nebra, who is the best single target debuffer for green. You have Vanessa, who have what's it? Is it perfect defense or whatever? Like one type of defense stunt, which basically allow you to block all damage. That is absolutely crazy if you have the green talent, which basically allow you to have debuff immunity when you do a block. Because then what happens is you can almost use Vanessa as a mask in some sense, because rather than doing first 10 immunity guarantee, what happens is that you can use your skill 2 or skill 3 to make sure all of your character can guarantee block enemy attacks, and with the green talent to give debuff immunity upon blocking, then essentially all of your entire team are immune to debuff from that point onwards. So that's an absolutely crazy skill in PvP, and in sometimes it works even better than Mars because you don't have to do it on the first turn. You can choose when to do it, but that is purely for PvP focus. So whether you want to do that or not, and also do that investment and sacrificing potentially other green talents just so that you get that debuff immunity, that's a personal choice you have to make. But definitely Vanessa is very much I will almost say top tier in PvP, in my opinion. Then you have Charmy and Soul and also Solid and Ghost. Those are kind of your standard SR gear farming team. Um, but first of all, if you are not a new player, then hopefully are already able to clear Red Dungeon 15, so you don't need them anymore. Um, I know for a fact you are able to clear Red Dungeon 15 without a tank because I have been able to do it. I do need to win him, but you are able to do it without a tank. And I also know for a fact Lotus is good enough as the sole DPS, so you don't even need the second DPS either. So definitely so solid, and also Ghost is really low value to me, even from the perspective of farming LR gears in the red dungeons. Charmy is, however, very much important, a great healer, but the only reason why I don't feel Charmy is needed anymore because there's the S2 Charmy now. By the time 999 Summon banner is available, S2 is also there, and S2 Charmy is also a blue healer and works better than your normal Charmy. So there's really no reason why you would be aiming for a normal Charmy when you can potentially get an S2 Charmy, even from the Gateway of Destiny, for example. So that's kind of why I don't feel like Charmy should come into any kind of consideration either, even though she is a very good character. Okay, now let's talk about the skill pages now. So for skill pages, I have four different tiers. So the first one is great on everyone. So if it's like a generic one, then what I mean is great on most of the characters, whoever you equip on. If it's more one of those character specific ones, then normally what that means, is good on all the attackers, or good on all of the debuff, or good on all of the support, etc. Then the next tier I have only good for some. So for some it could be only good for one character like Radius, or it could be only good for some of the characters in that class, or only for some attackers, etc. I'll talk about more as I go through all of them because they're all a bit niche. But yeah, it's normally not good for everyone in that class, but only good for some of them. Then you have situational, which is very similar to the tier above, but this is more depending on the enemy lineup instead. So rather than the tier above, which is only good based on the character you have, which at least you still have control because you are the one bringing them into the tier, into the team. The next tier is what I actually think is they are only good depending on the lineup you are facing, and therefore as a result, it's even less controllable and therefore less universal in my opinion. And then the last tier is the ones who I do feel it's quite bad and you don't really need them. Yeah, so okay, let's go straight from the beginning. So this one increase attack and also magic attack. Now a lot of characters in this game scale off attack and also magic attack even if they are not actual DPS. So for example, a lot of the healers scales off based on their magic attack, and some of the barriers, for example S2 Noel, also scale based on of magic attack, etc. So that kind of makes it just quite universal regardless of what role your character is playing. But that's kind of why this is a really good skill page. Then you have those two, one is for HP, one for defense. The HP one is probably slightly better purely because they're more since scaling off HP than since that scaling off defense. For example, S2 Charmy scale off healing based on HP rather than defense or magic attack. So that's kind of why HP is possibly slightly more universal than defense, but in either case, they are both very good defensive skill pages. So if you do you want to protect one of your character to the max, those are normally the skill page, the universal generic skill page that you want to go after. Then we have the Leopold one. So Leopold one, very similar to the first one, also give increased attack and magic attack, I believe. However, it's gonna scale based on your HP. So I think it's something like this one at the lowest level give 10% increase. This one at the lowest level give 15% if you have like 100% HP left. So that normally means like if you are more than 67%, then you're better off with this one. Less than 67% of HP, then you're better off with that one. But you can easily make sure that you have high HP when you attack. For example, if you go for one-turn kill and moving fast, so for example, you have your Finro or your Valtus to make sure you actually attack first, then you're guaranteed to have high HP. Or if you actually put it on someone like Signal 2 Noel, who can get barriers at the start of the wave as well, then you can almost guarantee you're able to get that 15% as opposed to a really low percentage on your scaling, and that's kind of why it's really good. And on that note, it's a really, really good skill page for Signal 2 Noel. So if that is something you're considering building, like how to maximize the value of Signal 2 Noel, then Leopold is potentially one skill page you want to consider getting. Then we have Charlotte and Lotus. They're both for debuffers. Um, Charlotte's one, I think, increase the like. So I think it's like decrease crit resistance and therefore increase the likelihood of you landing a crit hit. Whereas Lotus one reduce speed. Both are very good. Reduce speed, that's kind of like I don't need to explain that. Like especially in like meta, in PvP meta where it's actually quite concentrated and you a lot of time face mirror matchups. If you're able to land a speed debuff, even though it's a tiny speed debuff, like only 2%, that can make you go before your mirror match, and that's gonna be quite advantageous most of the time. And same thing with Charlotte, you are reducing the you are increasing the likelihood of you critting, which first of all means more damage, but also second thing is that a lot of attacks in this game actually have a condition on crit. So for example, if you have Red Yami, he can bleed only when he crit. And I think similar to either Nozel or Fagonia, where they either bleed, as either burn or poison the enemy, but only when they actually land a crit. So therefore, don't think of like increasing the likelihood of crit as just more damage. It can actually serve other purposes on top of just extra damage as well. So that's kind of why I really like them. The other thing I really like them is that there's no condition on the type of tax that's needed to activate them. Some of the other skill, for example, Real's one, says you're only able to do that debuff if you use like a special skill. I'm pretty sure Charlotte and Lot. In fact, let me check. Just to confirm, where's Charlotte one? Yeah, reduce crit res to your enemy upon attacking, so there's no condition on the type of attack. And Lotus one as well, it's just upon attacking. There's like no condition either, and that makes it really good because a lot of the attacks from debuffers are actually AoE. So for example, Charlotte has two AoE attack. Lotus has also have two AoE attack, and also like his normal attack is AoE, which is crazy. So just having them on debuffer can make sure you constantly apply those debuff continuously on all of the enemies. And even though it's only like a percentage chance, so there's like RNG, but because you are able to do it so often, it kind of make up for that RNG element. So that's kind of what I really like them. Then you have Sally, which increase all attacks, which once again kind of self-explanatory, very similar to what Leopold and the other generic one is. Let me once again just confirm. I'm not very familiar with the summon skill page. Yeah, increase all attack. This one's only based on skill too, so there's that dependency. But still, increase all attack is just possibly one of the best stats in the game because, like I said, it can scale based on it can be useful for both DPS and also healers and also shield users, etc. So that's kind of why having that ability to increase someone's attack is just really, really useful. So that's what Sally is also here. Then I have William. William one's really funny. It basically increases healing. I'm gonna talk about William alongside with one of those one. I can't remember, but one of those one is like a 35% chance of healing 4%, whereas William is like a 3% chance. Wait, let me just get the numbers out just so that I can actually compare. William is upon using skill 2, grant the ally with the lowest HP recovery equal to 6 with 10% of max HP. Okay, so this is 6% of max HP, and it's the one to the lowest. If you look at the generic one I was talking about, which is an absolutely awful one, is it this one? No. Uh, This one, 35% chance to HP recovery equal to only 4%. So what you can actually see is the winning one actually heal more than whichever this one or this one is. This one, the crystal orb of the beast. So winning one actually do more healing than this dedicated healing one. On top of that, this you have to actually equip it on the character that you want to heal. Which sometimes you normally the one that have the lowest HP will tend to have the lowest HP would be your DPS, so you're sacrificing extra attack damage just for a bit of healing by equipping the skill page, which doesn't really make sense. Whereas for Williams one, you put it on your supporter, so you can still have your attacker using an attacking skill page, yet you are still able to help to protect him by healing him as well. Now, granted, the William one is only up on using skill 2, so it's not every turn, but it's once every 2 turns, but still, it's every 2 turns you're able to do a 6% as opposed to 35% chance of just doing 4% for a single turn. So, I'm pretty sure Williams one still work out better. And on top of that, this is a supporter skill. And if you look at all of the supporters in the game, they're normally the fast one. You have Finro, you have Valtor, you have William. All of them are pretty fast. So even though you can only use this once every 2 turns, because you are almost likely gonna do 2 times as many attacks, it's almost gonna be same as healing every single turn as well. So that's kind of why I do feel there's a lot of value in the skill page, especially if you actually compare this to the only other healing skill page in the game right now, which is absolutely awful compared to this. And that's kind of why I do feel this belongs to the top tier. Then we move on to the next tier, which are skill pages, which that I think are only good for some characters. We have Radis. Radis one is really good for himself, and no one else. His normal ability, I believe, just give a barrier to what is it? This one. Normal ability at the start of wave give a barrier, which is nice. But remember, this can only be used on defenders. Defenders normally already have really good defense themselves. You don't need to protect them any further most of the time because no one's going after them. So having a barrier on an actual defender is not very good. You want your barrier to be on other characters. So that's kind of why I feel this passive is absolutely useless. But what makes this really, really strong for Radis himself is this increased damage res, level 5, which increase your damage resistance by 45%. This is very similar to what Vanessa is able to offer with his total defense. Because if you actually use this in conjunction with your green talent, even though this is not guaranteed, but 45% is really high chance. Actually, I don't actually know how the stat works, whether it's like 45% increase probability of blocking or whether it's increasing your probability of blocking by an extra 45%. But either way, it's going to make a difference. And if you use that with a green talent, which allow you to have debuff immunity at the same time, this is absolutely game changing in PvP meta. And that's kind of why I do feel this is actually really, really good skill page and Radis himself. Anyone else, absolutely useless. But if you do have Radius, then this is actually a really, really good skill page for PvP. Then we have Fagona. Fagona increase damage uh, dealt if you are more than 50% HP. And I think that's only good for some of the attackers, mainly because attackers are normally the slowest. So if you're attacking quite slow a lot of time, and also because attackers are normally quite fragile, a lot of time by the time you start attacking, you are actually already quite low HP and you may not be able to trigger the skill page. What this is really good at is for those one-turn attacks. So for example, if you have Riot, if you have Lift, if you have Noel, and use Noel to do an AoE attack with her special rather than putting a barrier, that could also work. Or if you put it on a really fast attacker like Season 1 Asta, who is probably like the fastest attacker or something like that, then yeah, they will be really beneficial. But for any other attackers who are too slow and too fragile, by the time it's your turn, it's very likely that you won't be able to trigger this anymore. So that's kind of why I only think this is gonna be useful for some attackers, but not everyone. Then we have Jax one. I can't remember Jax one. What's Jax one? 50% chance of applying increased damage upon using skill 1. Okay, yeah. So skill 1 is not the most useful attack because normally you have the lowest scaling. However, if you do put it on someone like S1 Noel, sorry, S2 Noel, or someone like Red Yami who actually have an AoE normal attack, then I do feel there's value to it because their normal E attack actually hurts quite a bit by dealing damage to all four enemies. But other than that, I can't really see this being useful to any other attackers with only a single target skill 1. So that's kind of why, once again, it's only good for some. Then you have Nozel. Nozel is also another quite weird one because what happens is upon taking damage, I have a 20 to 40% chance of applying reduced special point. Now, this is actually really strong if the battle is long. However, most of the time, what happens is the enemy tend to, if the battle is short, normally you don't even get a second chance to release your combo with a special skill. So this would be absolutely useless in those situations. Now that I think about it, it probably falls down to the tier below because it's not actually good for some debuffers. It's more based on what type of enemy you're facing. Um, well, actually, no, it's kind of in both. I'll put it back. It kind of depends on your own team lineup as well, which you do can control. But yeah, so basically, if you're going for a long draw out battle, then there is actually a lot of value in this. Especially if you're up against like AOE team who always end up hitting your Nozel, then everyone who hit you, you have a chance of applying this reduced special point, and that basically allow you to release your second special skill before your enemy is able to release their second special skill. So kind of allow you to burst out damage before the enemy is able to burst out damage. So that's kind of why it is useful in certain lineup, but it is very much relying on the whether both you yourself are kind of playing for a stall team, and also the enemy is also kind of stalling out the game with like healers with barrier plays, etc. But in all honesty, with the release of season 2 now, I can see that happening. Oh, actually, no, there's juniors as well. I don't know. It just feels like there's too situational depending on who else do you have on your team as well as the enemy you're facing. But that's why I feel like it's only good for some of the times. Then we have those ones. I'll talk about real one first because I actually remember. So reals one basically only activate upon special skill, and it's like a 60% chance to reduce defense. Now the debuff itself is actually really nice. However, this only works on special skill, so you are likely only gonna see this activated once in the battle, and also it's only a 60% chance of doing that debuff. So there's RNG on top of the fact that you can only do it once in the battle most of the time. And on top of that, a lot of the AoE in this game is sorry, a lot of the special skill for debuffers are actually AoE. And I think it's actually says it's like 60% chance unless it's like a translation error. Otherwise it does say it's like 60% chance to a random enemy as well. So if you actually think about, unless there's a translation error, otherwise I'm taking Pertwin has done a good job in the translation. But if you think about it, special skill for debuffers are all AOE, so you're hitting full enemies. So and on top of that, you don't have 60% chance. So you're hitting full enemies. If you actually wanted on the one specific enemy you want to land this on, that's only 1 in 4 chance. There's only 60% normally, so that comes down to only a 15% chance of actually applying this debuff, which is so small that I don't even think there's any value in it. And that's kind of why I think it's way, 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 way too situational. The only time I can think of this actually being useful is for whatever reason the enemy is using like 4 debuffers or 4 attackers where killing off any one of them would provide huge value, then fine. But most of the time, actually, a normal PvP lineup tend to have like one healer or one barrier maker or one tank, etc. So it's just too RNG based to make this actually worthwhile. That's kind of why I feel this is not a very good skill page. Then for those ones, let me check what they are. Is it Breath of Earth? Yeah. Breath of Earth increase damage if the wearer has a barrier. So yeah, so very much situational on whether the enemy have that barrier play. Granted, a lot of people will be playing season 2 now, so this can potentially be activated a lot, but whether you really want to do that, and also whether you just happen to be actually wanting to attack Signal to Noel because remember, Signal to Noel can actually counter attack. So if you're not actually confident enough that you can break that barrier, then it can actually backfire because then you end up like taking one counter attack from Signal to Noel instead. So that's kind of why I feel this is way too situational for it to be useful. Then we have the next one, this red one, Breath of Flame, only for attacking boss. So that's kind of why obviously it's situational. Then this green one was this green one. Ground immunity is a status change. So yeah, so this one can be useful if you see the enemy obviously is trying to go for a stun move. For example, you can see they have Mars paired up with Within, and you can see oh they're definitely trying to go for like a first turn stun, and then you can put this to protect yourself against that. But first of all, it depends on whether they actually end up doing that stun in the first turn. Like I said, you can do actually do a bit of mind gameplay by pairing up Mars with William, but don't actually stun the person, but stun when it's actually Mars turn. And because Mars is so slow, and this only protects you for the first turn, then by the time when Mars actually attack, you have made your move already and no longer protected against stun. So that's kind of why I do feel like even though it can provide game changing, there's first of all situational depending on whether the enemy is actually gonna play a stun unit, and two, even if they do, there's a bit of a mind game play on whether they are actually trying to stun you before you attack or stun you after you make your move. So that's kind of why I feel it's very situational. Then the last few ones, this one's the one I already talked about. HP recovery. It's not even as good as this Williams supporting one. So there's just literally no use for this. It's RNG chance 35%, and it's not even that high. And you have to put it on an attacker in order to protect him, and then therefore you're sacrificing more DPS potential. It's just a really bad skill page. Then this one, what's this one do? Dot immunity, once again, depends on whether the enemy is actually playing DOT. I know in the future there are more DOT characters coming in who are a bit more meta relevant, but right now there's like no meta relevant DOT team. There's maybe if you play Fagonia alongside with Nozel, then yes, this can be good up against them. But there are other ways to beat Fagonia and Nozel combo, and Fagonia and Nozel is not very much seen in the meta either. So that's kind of why this I don't think it's really needed right now. Then you have this one, Breath of Water. Chance to remove one debuff from yourself upon taking damage. This one I'm not a great fan of it either. First of all, a lot of the debuff if you're actually taking damage. Now, I don't actually know how this is calculated, whether you remove the debuff before you take damage or after. But from the way it's worded, I'm gonna assume you are removing the debuff after taking damage. And what that normally means is that, for example, if you have reduced defense or incapacitate, you have already taken the extra damage that debuff is going to give you. So what's the point of removing it after you've already done that? So this, even though it sounds good, is really only going to be beneficial for removing, for example, attack reduction debuff because you have a chance of removing them before you make your move rather than after the debuff comes already taken place. And on top of that, it's only an RNG chance of doing that as well. And that's kind of why I'm not a great fan of it. And yeah, it's just a bit weird. Then we have this water. No, I just done the water one. What's the last one? This one. White Blizzard. Silence, yeah. Silence, first of all, RNG once again, and second thing, there are not even that many units who are able to silence, so there's just hardly ever any use for that. Then Mars one, I think it's just a standard thing I always complain about tanks, which is that you may be protecting yourself very well because you apply fortify to yourself upon taking damage. And same thing for Mars, if you do have it, you increase your own defense you end up protecting yourself very well, but you do not do enough for the team, and that's not something I like. I prefer my tanks, even though they're tanks, they're trying to protect the team. Right, they need to have that team support utility on top of the fact that themselves just being bulky. So that's kind of why I also don't really value much for the skill page, which only do well to protect the tank who is already tanky. It just doesn't make much value to me. Yeah, okay, so that's everything I want to cover today. It's a very long video, but there is a lot of content to cover. Like I said, those are only my opinions to what I think is good characters and also good skill pages. Do take this with a grain of salt, because everyone's situation is different. But hopefully, my explanation for the reason for every single one of the skill pages or characters will give you enough information for you to make that kind of decision yourself on choosing what is the actual reroll you want to aim for. Okay, thank you all for watching today. I'm not sure whether I will be posting more videos on this side of the year because I'll be going off on holiday very soon, between Christmas and New Year, etc. I know there's some new events coming up. I'm not too sure whether I actually have time to cover it. I definitely wouldn't have time to make any recording. If it's like a simple event where I can get away with just like, posting my gameplay without any commentary, then I may do that. But otherwise, if I don't speak to you guys again, have a lovely Christmas and also New Year. Just take a break, enjoy the festival period, and I'll see you guys in next year.